coming back!
Greetings, ladies and gentle lickers. I am your host, Brendel. I'm joined by two fabulous T-virus specimens here. Introduce yourself, guys.
Hi, my name is Biodevil Dom, and did you just call me a gentle licker?
A licker?
Okay, well, sure. Let's go with that.
I mean, hey, I'll take that title. I'll take that title.
PG, sir? PG?
And I am Renegade Operative, and people are trying to discover one of Resident Evil's most fascinating mysteries: why the tyrant has no penis.
What?
I'm kidding, of course. That is weird for a monster to be like that, but again, I'm Renegade Operative. How are you people?
Look, it can't be as weird as knowing that a licker is trying to get Claire's ass.
Alright then.
Okay, now.
Away from creatures and sexual activity, we are here to talk about Resident Evil. A lot of news came out that is pretty impressive, very interesting. Also, this is our second take, by the way, because the first one died, but again, we're gonna get right back into it. So, question number one, Mr. Brandel, could you take that, please?
Yeah,
or do you want me to read?
Oh, if you want to read it, be my guest, you know. All right.
I'll do it this time. So, what do you think of Capcom knowing that there would be a divide between fans when it came to the camera perspective they decided to implement into the remake? We had discussions of whether we could make a game that was everything for everyone. Capcom Europe COO Stuart Turner, he told Game Industries Biz that for the guys who want tank controls and fixed cameras, can we do that? But the world has moved on and these players have changed. And if they did introduce old school mechanics, these fans might play it and actually decide it's not what they wanted after all. We knew those were the expectations around the game, and we knew it looked great and would be a good game. But around that point, the tank controls and fixed cameras, we were worried that the fan base would be divided. But although there might have been some initial dissenting voices, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive, and that's by GameSpot. How I feel about this? Well, again, like I said before, when it comes to tank controls, fixed cameras, it's interesting that Capcom at least try to put that into a certain perspective so people can be like, you know, this has changed. We don't know if we're going to implement it in the modern era because obviously the gamers of the past aren't the gamers of today. I think what they want to do is they want to modernize this game while making it feel somewhat similar to the original. And that's what they're doing with the aesthetic, the horror, everything that comes with the game. So I think it's going to be an interesting premise, but this quote might turn a lot of fans the wrong way. Certain salty people who can't get over Capcom, Kappa. But, you know, I want a good game, and that's the experience that I'm hoping for. So I hope, again, it blends the two styles together, so we'll have something good to play when it comes to January. And Resident Evil is coming close.
Yeah. I would say that I think they probably made the best possible decision, because the thing is that there's already a divide. So, and the fact that they said that they didn't want to make more of a divide, or just a divide in general, seems that they might not have been as aware or very aware about that divide being there in the community, because there is, like, at least at this point, there's like a three-way divide between, you know, first person, fixed cameras, and over the shoulder. So I don't think that you know, regardless of which style they went with, that would have really changed much. Although I do think that despite whichever style they went with, there was going to be somebody saying something about it. I think that was just going to be a given.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think in this case it's probably the best choice because they did say that, and I believe this is a later question as well, that they try to do all of the styles. So it's like, I think at that point it's a matter of, you know, if they went with the style they personally felt was best, then, you know, it's a matter of, can they just make the game feel right? Can they make a game that plays well and is a game that is true to the original, just in a genre sense, right?
Yeah. So a different way, pretty much. That's the best route they can go. And it's a later question. I don't think you can please everyone, however, but I'm going to get to that when I get to that question. So, Mr. Brandel.
Mm-hmm. No. I find it, I think it's a good thing they actually tried to, actually, no, I think I'll say that for the later question, though, but at least they're self-aware that fans are, this is like divided in fan base regarding which playstyle is which, or which one people prefer. At least they went out their way to try different styles, at least, no, but ultimately though, you can't please everybody, and I do agree with the point is that what's his name, Stuart Turner, was it?
Yes.
Made, even if it was fixed camera angles or tank controls, it's not guaranteed you will please those people when they play the game because they're so nostalgic for the original. But they'd be like, okay, this is not like this is not like that, you know, here and there. So it's like, it's best to go with a more creative route on how they want to make the game versus pleasing those people that are not guaranteed to like the game in the first place, regardless of the style.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I made this point too, is that they could go and make this game, right? And they could have made it a fixed camera angled game, and it could have turned out to be a piece of shit game. You know, I said this when people were getting upset when Capcom didn't show RE2 Remake and Devil May Cry 5 one year at E3, and I said they could make these games, you know, a certain way, and they could reveal these games, and all these people are hyping it up, you know, and the next thing they know, they see that game and they feel like it's shit because it's not what they want, exactly what they wanted, right? And in Capcom's defense too, when it comes to like RE2 Remake, I think that had they've made this game very similar, just gameplay alone, right, it wouldn't have really turned out so well because it would just feel like it had regressed from, like, say, the original Resident Evil remake, and as well as like other Resident Evil titles in that playstyle. But that's just my personal opinion on that.
I have a good point to close off before we move on. All fixed camera games, it doesn't guarantee perfection or success. I think that Resident Evil 0 is a prime example. That game is very tedious. Like, we can't lie about that. Like, that game has a lot of backtracking issues. It has issues with the inventory. I can find a lot of problems in that game. It doesn't guarantee that a fixed camera angle game would be 100% perfect had it been in that style, but they could have created a myriad of problems. People have to keep in mind that the quality is most important when it comes to video games like this.
No, Ren, I'm glad you said that, actually, because, no, in my honest opinion, though, while Resident Evil 0 is not the worst game in the world, I feel like it's a very bad prequel, and the game itself has a lot of problems. But no, that's a different story for another day. Like, you know, but I don't get into it though. But RE0 is a perfect example of a flawed game using that freaking camera angle and whatnot. Yeah, playstyle. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to really like it sometimes. Other times I love it. Other times I really, really hate it. Especially when you get down in the caves and there's monkeys and the monkeys are trying to chop your balls off. It's not fun.
Those monkeys are too strong. They can stun lock you into a corner. They take too much ammunition to kill. No, it's not worth it.
And Rebecca's so weak. Why is she so weak? Like paper mache.
Because isn't she balanced completely differently in Remake, where she has like Chris's health?
Yeah, but that's a different story. That's not a discussion.
Yeah, that's
kind of
definitely
how I feel about like Code Veronica, where like if you go from 3 to Code Veronica, it's kind of like a slap in the face because of like some of the things that it's missing going from 3. And I know this like development story behind both games, you know, them being developed at the same time, but it still though it's like it kind of feels like a slap in the face and a really bad way to play a Resident Evil game if you jump into
to
3.
Code Verana's defense, though, at least that game is balanced around its playstyle, unlike Resident Evil 0.
Yeah, which is a fair argument.
Yeah, but it's still weird how the true sequel, Resident Evil 3, which is supposed to be Code Veronica, is very regressive when you compare it to the actual side game, which was supposed to be something else, turned out to be Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a great segue, so we can move on to number 2.
I could read off number 2. To
right.
follow up with the last question, do you think that the developers were being unreasonable with trying out all 3 playstyles during the development of the game? And in my opinion, no. Because, and I said this in the last recording too, that if you were a game developer and you're making a game, you want to try to test out any and all possibilities to see what is the best possible scenario to make your game fun. If you're making your game and just half-assing it and not really giving a shit and just throwing shit all over the place just because you can do it without a care in the world, then you're not going to make a fun game. But if you actually take the time and try different things and try out a multitude of different play styles and different mechanics and things of that nature, I think with keeping in mind that you need to also innovate and make the game fun, then that's what's more important. And I don't remember. Oh wait, yeah, that's for a later question. But yeah, that's just how I personally feel. Is that
go ahead.
It's just that it's great that they tried out all 3, and that was probably the best option, is to try out all 3.
I was gonna say, yeah, hell fucking no. Them trying out like all 3 like styles, at least they tried. At least they managed to not stick to just one style before deciding which was best. I think what people need to understand is that you have to try something before it actually succeeds. So the developers really, put in focus. They weren't being unreasonable. They were saying, like, logically, these styles didn't fit the game, so first person had to be on the chopping block. So did fixed camera, and then they finally stopped on third person camera. Obviously, they're going with the route of what works the best for them, what works the best for the game, and meeting those quality standards. I think those standards are very important before even saying, oh, it should have been this, first person, fixed camera. It's irrelevant. What's really important is them making the best game that they can possibly make. Yeah.
Most definitely.
Well, Killer Keemstar, Killer Brandon. No, I'm kidding. Do you have any opinions on this?
Honestly, no, because Dom took all of them again. But to keep it brief, yeah, at least they actually tried and implement everything rather than just say, okay, fuck everything else, let's go straight to third person.
Well,
so, yeah, they tried.
Well, Dom will get a compensation prize of like Ada's panties on his mantle. I'm pretty sure that would be very riveting.
Okay then.
Really? Really?
No.
Does that come with an Ada lap dance?
I didn't say all that, fam, but maybe it's time to move on to the next question.
I want to know my reward though.
Fuck you. Number 3.
Fuck you, number 3.
Yeah, but Capcom tries to capitalize on quality over quantity for their current marketing strategy. Do you think they will meet this goal? I hope so, because again, since the PS3 era, the start of that era, maybe a little bit beforehand, with the end of the generation before that era, Capcom has been making really bad decisions, from outsourcing to business practice with DLC, on disc content, and releasing so many additions to one game. Although that's not unusual for Capcom, I think about it, so it's not very much of a problem, but at the same time, it's kind of ridiculous.
I want my Ultra Super Turbo edition of like RE. Just give it to me.
Well, we had that for Dead Rising 3.
Oh, and that was a big flop.
plus Alpha Edition.
Yeah, that is certainly a long title. But besides that, they haven't been on the best of footing, especially in even the current generation. We have Street Fighter V, and them not releasing sequels for the other projects they released this generation, like Strider 2. Like, can we get that, please? The first one was amazing.
It's not even, and just to kind of cut you off and add on to that, it's not even just from the previous generation, but also like the generation prior to that one. There's been franchises that they just completely ignored.
Capcom 5, anybody?
Yeah, it's like some of that stuff is just dead. Like,
yeah, I think the marketing strategy for Capcom was, this is ironic, they're saying quality over quantity, but the strategy back then was, we're going to focus on Street Fighter, we're going to focus on Monster Hunter, and Resident Evil. That's it. If we want to make money, it's about these three breadwinners. I don't think that was a smart idea. I'm glad that they're trying something different, saying that, oh, we want our games to be really good. We don't care about them being, $5 million sellers. We care about the quality behind that game. At the same time, Capcom is a business. It's hard to really say if they will stick true to this word because they can get money hungry. We've seen this before in the past. They inflated numbers. They even said, DMC Devil May Cry is going to make this much. Let's slice it down again and again and again until it makes like barely any money. That's why that game flopped so hard. Yeah, chump change, like loose vagina change. That was completely terrible.
To kind of add on to that point too, like, I mean, we've seen this sort of happen even recently too with Resident Evil 7, where they were like, oh, we want to see it make 4 million at launch, and then it didn't make that, and they were like, buy our Fiscalier, and it didn't make that, so they were like, by the end of the year, and eventually it did. By the end of the year, especially with like the release of Gold Edition. But they were doing that where they were putting up these numbers, big ass numbers, and just kept pushing back that goalpost or changing their expectations. I will say though, however, that I would rather see it than believe it when it comes to the whole quality over quantity thing, because I do think that when Capcom makes statements like these, they're not necessarily inaccurate, but they do misword them to an extent where it's like, oh, hey, you said this thing, but you didn't necessarily go into full detail and meant that you were trying to do this other thing while achieving this goal from the original statement. So, and a good example of that was like when they said they wanted to do more remasters, for example. And what happened with that? We saw that they were just mostly focusing on Resident Evil remasters with a few games here and there that were not Resident Evil. So, so I do think it's just one of those things for me, at least, where I need to see it from Capcom, where they do want to push out more quality games rather than focus on numbers before I actually believe it.
Also, to note on that though, Renegade should brought up a point. The Capcom did say they want Resident Evil 2 to sell 1 million, so they're keeping their expectations low this time.
Yes.
So, which we all know it will surpass that number, considering like this is Resident Evil here. Like, let's be a little realistic about it. But besides that, though, that's a pretty strong number to keep yourself low.
I think that's a very a more reasonable expectation. I don't know if you guys feel about that. Saying that 1 million is their expected amount.
It seems reasonable. I mean, that's like, to me, I thought it would be higher, like maybe 5 million or something like that. But because the original sold like almost 6 million.
Yeah,
that's true.
It would have. I would have expected something like what they did with RE7, where they say 4 million at launch, and again kept pushing that back. But I think the way that they're doing it right now is a lot more reasonable by comparison. I think I talked enough, though. Is there anybody else that wants to add on to the point or move on?
Yeah, hold on. Resident Evil 2, the original one, sold 4.96 million on record.
Aha, I see, okay. Still, like 5 million seems like something they would go for instead of 1, but I mean, if they keep the quality, the game's gonna sell anyway. That's my opinion.
And also for other reference notes, Resident Evil 5 sold the most in the series, which we know this, 7.3. Then Resident Evil 6, 7.1. Then Resident Evil 7, 5.1.
Yeah, not bad. Look, 5 is Kang. Well, we was Kangs in Majini Land, nibba.
Do you know the way?
I will say on record, I do think that 5 is a better game than 4, but that's just because in my opinion, I think it's closer to what Resident Evil is than 4.
For me, it's more so on a lower standpoint. It's closer to where Resident Evil is. But besides that, though, for 5, it's closer to where Resident Evil is from a lower standpoint than Resident Evil 4 was.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
But are we finished with question number 3? If so, we could move on to number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who will read that one off?
Did you read, Brandon?
Yeah, I already did.
I could read number 4 then. Capcom mentioned that outside of all 3 styles, it was the third-person camera that worked best. How do you feel about this perspective when it comes to the Resident Evil 2 remake and third-person in general? So, and can I just read off number 5 because I think it ties in well with this as well.
Sure.
Hypothetically speaking, do you believe that fixed cameras would sell well for a title in this modern era of gaming? What positives and negatives of a project like that would be present? Like, what do you think would be present in that? So to answer the first question, I do think that was, again, it was reasonable that they tried to test out all the different styles. I don't particularly mind that it's in that perspective. I was confused when they first announced it, and that was something you could actually see in the E3 call. I was like super hyped when I saw it was over the shoulder, and then I was just like, wait a minute, is it first person? Is it over the shoulder? Or like, what is it? I'm confused. But I think in general it's better because in this case, like they said earlier, they were not trying to divide the fan base, even though they knew that they probably would. And I think the best route that they taken was going with the third person. And in my opinion, if I was in the stance of like a developer, if I was a developer working on Resident Evil 2 Remake, I would rather make a game that's third person that, you know, feels fresh and is fun to play, and hear a bunch of people call me a money grabber or say that they're depressed because Resident Evil 2 Remake isn't in fixed camera angles. I would rather come out and say, hey, Resident Evil 2 Remake is over the shoulder, and try to deliver a good game as opposed to focus on what camera perspective it's in. So I think in Resident Evil 2's case, this is a good thing. Third person in general, I think that it gets a lot of flack, unfortunately, and I think that there are a lot of games that do have the potential of being really great survival horror games in that perspective. And I hope that with something like Resident Evil 2 Remake, if it's successful, it influences like indie developers to branch out from just doing first-person horror games, because Outlast and Amnesia have done it before. And I'll let you guys go before I go to number 5. So,
real quick, Don, I will say, like, you know, at least you just play the game in third person because, you know, it just to make people salty, not because you're a fan of the franchise or anything.
Oh, me? Because I, you know, I'm hyped for a game.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to indulge in the salts.
Nah.
So on the topic at hand, I will say it is interesting that they try to experiment with all 3 styles before picking what worked for them. it was great that they played with the gamers and they decided to tease at E3 because we didn't know what was going on in either of the trailers for DMC5 and RE2 Remake. It was just, you know, RE2 Remake, first person rat. Like, what the fuck's going on? Rats running around, and then we see the cop getting mauled by a zombie, and it turns out Leon shoots him. That was cool. Same for DMC, where like there's weird ass monsters, a black guy like Brian with like a milk dud head, and it's something that was, you know, unexpected, but I loved how it looked. A lot of people said that the facial animations were a bit off, like super fucking weird, and I could see that for DMC because I was in the call saying, what is this looks weird. He looks like Nero, looks like Dante from the reboot, but then I got over it. I got excited, I got super happy, and I think it's something they needed to experiment with. I do like the idea that they at least gave this a shot. I wish they would have like released maybe some concept footage. Maybe they will. Resident Evil 2 Remake is going to be at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show for those who really don't know what's going on. So they might release more concepts over time. I would like to see how this game really ran in fixed camera and first person. Obviously, I really don't care about first person, so the second best is the two new styles that we like. Really, one we saw, and then the other we don't know about. I'm excited for this, and I like that idea that they try. So people can't say that Capcom, oh, they didn't cater this to me, so they didn't even bother. They tried for you guys, and they didn't like the style.
What do you think about like that particular perspective, like in general?
Third person.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Dead Space could do it, and again, a lot of people think that, you know, third-person horror games can't be made when they have been in the past. I think it's interesting that they're going back to that. As I said in the last recording, maybe this will cause another boom in survival horror. I said that is kind of undervalued when it comes to The Evil Within 2 because that was a great game in third person. Some people overlook that, and it's cool when people go back to it, talk about it, and give their thoughts on it. But I think
both games,
yeah,
valued with that.
The first one is hard, I will agree, but the second one just fixes like everything. It's everything you would want in a sequel in terms of everything they fixed, and that's how a sequel should be. So I hope this game feels the same way. They take what was done in 2002 with the Resident Evil remake and they expand on it for this in a new camera style. There was a question that was also elaborated upon about, you know, the positives and negatives of fixed camera and if it would sell like in this modern era. I think
Brandon go yet, because I was saving that for after because I wanted you guys to go first before I answered number 5.
Okay,
so I already read it off.
I apologize for going, you know, off the rails, Mr. Brandon.
I don't think I have much to add, but thinking over about it though, I pointed out before though, they should go by their creative freedom of which will work better rather than just appealing to a certain amount of people. For one angle, I'm glad they actually tested all 3 styles because at least we got confirmation they actually wanted to see what would work best, you know, and they did it. They chose this. People need to get over it. That's all I gotta add.
Definitely. So I already read off number 5, but hypothetically speaking, as somebody who is in favor of like classic fixed camera angled games and just variety in general in this genre, I think that it would sell well, but not as well as say like a modern AAA title. I think it would sell well enough to create a niche because I do think that there is a market for people who want to play a classic style horror game. Hell, I think there would be pretty much a market for really any type of horror game, whether it be point and click, overhead, or side scrolling. So I'm not necessarily against the idea of a fixed camera angled game. In fact, I'm actually as far as I'm aware, there's the remake of Fear Effect, which is revitalizing the fixed camera angles, and there's also a few indie projects that I follow that are using that perspective as either their main focus for gameplay or as an optional feature that you can get.
It's like that for like Daymare 1998.
Daymare 1998 has an option. Two other games that I know of that are using it as their primary gameplay style is Road Fever and IOU, which I know we've had the developer interviews for on this channel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that, definitely there's a niche for that stuff. And I think that the positive of that would be, that there's variety in the genre, and like I said, even if it's like overhead or like point and click or side scroller, I think that seeing that variety would be the positive. The negative thing, though, I think, would be the fact that it would alienate a certain demographic that likes survival horror games. So if somebody likes first-person horror games, or if they like over-the-shoulder horror games, they will be alienated because this is a very dated gameplay style. And not that that's entirely a bad thing. I think that, again, there needs to be a variety, and not everyone needs to like every single type of horror game. But it will be something that not everyone will like, and that's what will make it a very niche type of genre, in my opinion, or subgenre in survival horror.
Yeah, Dom pretty much took everything I was gonna say. I was gonna add, like, another negative would be just another negative in general would be the controls. A lot of people who play these games, who've played like a smoother experience, probably wouldn't like controls of this magnitude. I said before, maybe it will be difficult for those people to get into fixed camera angles if they really aren't familiar with them. I did commend Capcom for saying, we're going to go out there and try to fix the control scheme for Resident Evil HD with the alternate controls. But even then, we talked about, like, the speed running strats and it being too easy and manipulated. And sometimes the animation can be a little bit crazy. So I hope that if they did go back to fixed camera, maybe they can make it in a way where it controls a little bit better. It's a little bit more, streamlined. Because there's always that weird thing of the camera, like, stopping if you're playing it at 30 FPS, and it gets a little bit jarring. It takes a while to learn and get used to it, but I do love the style. I wish it would come back someday in some capacity. I think that would be perfect for indie games. Because, as you said, Dom, there's a lot of people, trying their hand with bringing horror back with those games. So that would be the perfect, like, genre to do it in. Like, an indie title that's not really too big, that has those camera angles. But for mainstream, I don't know if it's going to sell really well, because mainstream, you have, like, big-time shooters. Ironically, Resident Evil 2 Remake is a third-person shooter now, no matter how you slice it. So that's what people probably will gravitate to a little bit more than just your standard fixed camera angle today.
Right on. Also, it's one thing people never realize, that Resident Evil has technically always been a third-person shooter.
Oh, yeah.
No, if you bring that up, they'll be in denial, but whatever. But anyway.
It is. It's, I would say the proper term for the game now is over the shoulder. But yeah, they do have their shooter elements and, behind the back camera and all that other stuff that people might say, well, it doesn't exist. I mean, if you're a fan of if you're a fan of the series, you should know, like, how this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what did I miss? I have to go step out for a second.
I was just finishing up my point, really. I'm done now.
Okay.
So we can move on to the new question that we haven't answered last time.
Did Brandon want to say anything about number 5? Or
No, let's move on.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, so who's gonna read 6? It's gonna be me?
Okay. I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, how do you feel about the new lead directors of Resident Evil 2 Remake? I don't know how to pronounce that because it's Japanese. How do you say his last name?
Kasunori Kaido?
Kaido?
Kayo?
Kadoi.
Kadoi.
And Ampo. I hope I said that right. All right. Kado's credits include Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica X, Revelations 1, and Resident Evil 6. Ampo worked on Resident Evil 5 and Revelations 2. He still has a pretty good resume as far as Resident Evil is concerned. So, I mean, I think it's in good hands.
Maybe some of that influence for third person was attributed to these credits, because I see one guy worked on RE6, Revelations 1, RE5, and Revelations 2. But the first guy also worked on the original and Code Veronica X, so he should know how these horror games work.
I would say, given their credits, it's well. First of all, I know, what is it, Hirabayashi, who goes by H sometimes. He'd been the lead director or producer for Resident Evil 6, and he's the producer for RE2 Remake.
Yeah.
And he had also worked on the HD remaster for Remake. So I don't want to necessarily say that anyone that worked on Resident Evil 6, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, right? And just kind of discredit them for that. But I do want to see what they can do if given the chance with RE2 Remake, right, and see what they can do under better guidance, and with teammates like this who have experience with certain games that play a certain way and lore wise worked a certain way, right? So just essentially giving them a second chance. I think that with Kadoi, Kazunori is probably going to be more suited for the horror elements, given that he worked on Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica X, and Revelations 1, whereas Ampo is probably going to be more of the reason why we see the over-the-shoulder gameplay and stuff like that, because they worked on Revelations 2 and Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, and two side notes. I find it I find it interesting that this game has two directors. I'm not sure if that's been done before in the series.
I'm not sure actually.
Yeah,
I want to check their IMDb really quick, because Kadoi also worked on Outbreak File 2, from what I can see. Both
okay.
Outbreak games as a character system designer.
So he definitely has the experience. Yeah. And another interesting thing is this is Kadoi's first time directing a Resident Evil game ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see what they can do. So far, they definitely nailed the art style and look of the game. And one thing that's not in here is that they wanted to put a good emphasis on graphics. They wanted to make sure the zombies look very realistic. They said at a presentation that the theme is wet and dark. That sounds like a bad porno, I know. But again, it really lives up to its name. Darkness everywhere, the new flashlight mechanic, which I pointed out, it looks like that was taken from the Reborn team, Invader Studios.
Invader Studios.
There's also in Revelations 1 as well, and I think 2, because they have flashlight mechanic where when you enter a dark environment, you turn the light on automatically.
Yeah, and just one other thing too with Anpo, it's actually Anpo, not Ampo. Mm-hmm. So ANPO instead of AMPO. He actually worked on Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 as a software engineer. And fun fact, he was also involved with games like Onimusha Warlords and Onimusha 3, as well as the Lost Planet and Shadow of Rome. So,
yes, so that lends credence to people who, they try to discredit these dudes, but it lends credence to when Capcom said that they have people on board that worked on the original Resident Evil 2.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, both of them have some form of experience with a classic Resident Evil game, and I would say probably more so of a credential, like more credible of a background compared to, say, like Masachika Kawada.
Oh boy, the roast.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. Let's make another ORC and make it an online shooter. A 3v3 online shooter. That's a great fucking idea.
I played Umbrella Corps for 5 minutes and I felt like I had like third rate, I don't know, a disease or something. Like I felt like I was a Magini fan. I don't know what was going on.
I thought I had Ebola. I thought I had like Ebola in my nuts.
Okay then. So getting that image right out of my head, I'm gonna read number 7. There was a slew of new information presented about the game. These details include making the knife-only run possible, the game speed. The game is speedrunner friendly. There is new secret unlockables, which is totally new to the game. More realistic puzzles. The game is more replayable than RE7, and there is no RNG elements. What are your thoughts on this news? Wow. Thank fucking God for no RNG elements, because I've been playing a little game called Mega Man X5, and the RNG elements to make the Enigma cannon work are quite garbage. It's like, oh my God. So it's good, no RNG. The knife only run thing was weird because the knife could break from what I saw in the game.
Multiple knives, so hypothetically speaking, we might actually get stronger knives or a knife that's not breakable.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they're gonna probably do like a Resident Evil 7, where if you complete, hold on, don't get a heart attack. Where you complete a certain condition, you unlock either a special weapon or items that give you more defense, attack, infinite ammo, etc. So, and also you could use those items from a save that you haven't beaten the game with. So there's that as an option. So hypothetically speaking, though, if we have those type of system implemented in RE2, we could get like a unbreakable knife and use that as a knife only object.
I was gonna say too, if you remember, if you know how to input the infinite ammo cheat code on Resident Evil 2, you could, hypothetically speaking, get an infinite like knife that just doesn't break, and not necessarily through a cheat code, but just as an unlock. Or maybe it's just like a knife-only game mode modifier where that's the only way you can play it. So I don't know. It could be a number of possibilities with how they implement that.
Yeah, I think an interesting headline here is the secret unlockable, which is totally new. So it could be a new mode or maybe a new weapon. We don't know yet. That sounds very interesting because it adds a little bit more replay value to the game, and they said they wanted to make the game more replayable than RE7. Also, more realistic puzzles. I'm kind of confused about that. Does that mean that the puzzles are going to be changed around and still stay like similar to the original? I don't know. Because I saw in the demo, like the statue puzzle is like way different. You don't just like use the unicorn medal. You use like multiple medals now to solve it.
Yeah.
So
I think
looking forward to that, seeing how that works.
Oh, yeah. So I want to add one thing real quick. The whole idea of realistic puzzles is kind of stupid, considering you gotta go to this elaborate length to actually solve these puzzles. So I think the word realistic is kind of like, fluff, honestly.
Yeah, I can see that too, because it's like, man, you gotta do like 80 different things to get out of the police station. And not to mention, you have to also, I mean, it's an old museum, so you have to solve all these puzzles and shit just to get out.
Exactly. Like, why would you need to go like halfway across the world just to find a key like in the sewers, then go back all the way upstairs to unlock one door that you probably don't need to go through? Which, yeah, that can happen because Resident Evil 2, the original, there's one room you need to unlock one key with, and it's useless after that. And you don't need anything out of the room unless you don't want it. If you actually want it. Also,
the night puzzle with the plugs. Yeah, that's a bit tedious.
Yeah, plus they're hitting in the most elaborate spots. So I don't think having the quote-unquote realistic puzzle solving is kind of it's kind of dumb if you ask me. Because Resident Evil always had these weird ass puzzles, and it's still weird in Remake 2.
Yeah, it's like now you can. Well, I saw some of it. Now you can like solve, you know, a puzzle with Leon's desk and open it, but you have to use like the initials of people's names around his desk, and you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and you're trying to solve a puzzle. I just don't think that's realistic in my opinion, because you try to do that and you're gonna get chomped on like fast.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, but you have to memorize the names of your dead comrades in order to get an extended magazine.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally believe it. It's as realistic
that's
as
the reward.
Yeah, that's the reward.
Extended magazine. Yeah, sorry, spoilers, but yeah, people find that out. There's also 2-side packs in the demo that they showed, which
I saw that. I just didn't know what was inside the disc.
Yeah. So anyway, in the case of like this news, I think I'm actually gonna have a slightly differing opinion. I do like the fact that they're saying there's going to be more replay value. The realistic puzzles thing, yeah, maybe they meant to say more like drastically redone puzzles or less over the top puzzles, I guess. Although that, you know, again, it could be just really bad wording. I wonder if that secret unlockable might have like anything to do with the main game, or if it's just like a side mode or something that was, you know, like something that's very specific as opposed to like impacting the main game.
I'm assuming that it could be maybe a secret campaign with Ada. Maybe that's a possibility.
That would be really cool. I would hope that they expand on like post-game content that the original never had. Because Dom, just to say something really quickly, there is a scenario in, I'm not sure which one was it, Dark Side Chronicles, where Ada like survives and you can play with her like post game when she's injured and she's trying to get the sample to Wesker.
That was Umbrella Chronicles.
Oh, it was? Damn it.
Yeah, Umbrella had Ada's extended campaign.
I apologize, people, my bad, but still, that would be pretty cool.
Didn't Umbrella Chronicles also have the 4th Survivor mode as well?
Yeah, it had 4th Survivor. It has What's Her Face campaign. It has Wesker's extended campaign. They take place around RE0, RE1, and post or pre RE4 post Code Veronica, because you know he went to the Umbrella lab and Chris and Jill taking on the Russian lab there, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to go that far, but I definitely think they will have like the Ada campaign maybe.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see the Ada campaign. I was also suggesting the possibility of maybe having like a prequel like section where you play as Sherry. And I know that probably doesn't sound appealing, but I was thinking kind of like Revelations 2 where you could play as the little girl. Yeah, Natalia. Because they did have a DLC where you just play as Natalia and you're running around and switching between her alter ego. Yeah.
As long as I get to like break a zombie in the head, I'm fine.
The only thing, and I know I didn't address the speedrunner thing because I just not really something I care about too much. The only thing that I will disagree on here is the RNG element. And the reason why I disagree with it is because when I think of like really well done RNG, I think of Resident Evil 3. And given just like, if you go into a slightly different room at a slightly different point in time in your playthrough, it changes up what enemy placement is there.
That is not RNG actually, though.
Excuse me, but are we talking item placement?
Yeah, that's technically not RNG. The closest thing to RNG as far as enemy placement is concerned is Nemesis. He either will appear in front of a door or he will run at you from a distance.
Oh, well then I stand corrected. Was I thinking of item placement then? I don't know.
Item placement happens when you do a different, where you do things differently when it's story. Like, you know, obvious example, whenever you go to the restaurant or you go to the news station first, the story or key items relations would be switched around.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. I stand corrected on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 on that because I do think of like Resident Evil 3, and it's like with like what you do if you do it differently, things get shuffled around, right? And things get kind of messed around. Mm-hmm. And to an extent, yeah, I do think of like the enemies, but yeah, again, I stand corrected on that misconception. But
yeah, before we move on, I just wanted to make a small point. I think the only reason they're doing something like this is because they know that they cut out scenario, A and B, B and A, so they want to keep things a bit more consistent. Mm-hmm. I don't mind random things if they're not bullshit, because again, if it's really hard to get something, you're trying your best to get it and make this event happen, you shouldn't be forced to play the game like 5 or 6 times so it can happen. That being said, I think that's the only reason they're doing something like this, to keep everything a bit more concise.
Also, one last thing I want to point out, the puzzles do have RNG elements, because it's not always going to be the same. Some of them do, not all. I don't remember which one has RNG. Mm-hmm. But I think that's why they mentioned no RNG, because certain puzzles and like I don't remember 2 had RNG from the top of my head for as puzzles, but looking at 3 as an example, I can see why they want to remove it, because it could be quite annoying, especially if you're a speedrunner.
Oh, the water puzzle.
Yeah, the water puzzle, or those clock things you gotta put the emblems on, because those are RNG.
Yeah, they're different each time.
It depends on depends on the aspects of the RNG, which is why I see Capcom want to remove it, because sometimes it actually can work against you rather than for you.
Yeah.
All right.
I like I said, I'm kind of 50-50 on it, because I do kind of like that idea of like shit being moved around. Maybe if they include like an arranged mode or something like that as an alternative for anybody that wants.
Yeah, that would be great actually for RE2. They're bringing back the arranged mode, because I only done maybe twice in my lifetime, because I just want to play through it though. But maybe I'll go back to it at some point before the game comes out. But I think they should definitely bring them back.
Yeah, just fuck around with the enemy placements and shit too. Like I just want to see shit moved around,
Bring in the boss randomizer as a main mode.
Oh my god! Oh, all right. I see what kind of fight it's gonna be. Oh my god! Does he come up the stairs? What the fuck?
That shit is funny, seeing like sharks in the fucking main hall. Oh my god, that's so hilarious. Seeing like people fight like,
not a trophy, I'll do it.
Yes, seeing people fight like 6 tyrants, I'm like, bro, this is fun. But
imagine 6 G4 Birkins.
Oh my god.
Please no.
He'll break the game at that point, but that's the point. Oh man.
But I guess we could do number 8.
Yes, I could go ahead and do it.
All right.
Do you have any thoughts on the collector's edition of Resident Evil 2 Remake with the Leon statue? That's expensive as fuck, and I can't buy it. It looks nice.
How much is it? Like $200?
Yeah, $200. You also get like an item box.
Someone post that in the chat so I could take a look at it. I'll put it on the video at this point, but yeah, it's too pricey for me. But it looks nice. The statue looks pretty detailed and cool, which is, a nice look at the character model. But I don't know everything it comes with. I know it comes with all the DLC from the deluxe edition, right?
I do. So with the collector's edition, you get the Leon statue, you get the collector's edition box, which is styled based off, like the style of it is based off of the new item box that's featured in Resident Evil 2 Remake. You get a 32-page art book with all of Ben's commentary that was never seen before. Ben being the reporter that gets killed by one of the G virus spawn things. I forget what those are called. The little like tentacle monsters.
Embryos?
Yeah, the embryos. There is also I don't know if it's a map. They call it a poster on the Japanese version, but essentially it's just a layout of the RPD. I don't know if you see the inside of it or not. It seems like it's only the outside, but maybe it's a reversible like poster, and maybe there is like a back where you see the map. And then obviously the deluxe edition with all the deluxe pre-order stuff and the statue. No steelbook, unfortunately, but for the most part, it's pretty pricey. A lot more pricier than the standard deluxe edition and the standard edition, where it's $60 or $70 for the deluxe edition.
Kind of a shame they don't have a steelbook because, just a little divergence here. They showed the Japanese cover and it's a bit more minimal and people seem to like it, so it's kind of weird they don't have like reversible covers they could use for people into that sort of thing. Maybe they will, but as of now, only that cover with the zombie on it is Japanese only.
Yeah.
So it looks pretty great. As a collector, I'm sure people will be excited. I'm kind of curious if they did the same thing that they're doing. Let me rephrase that. That if they're doing the same thing that they did with RE7, where they gave you all this crap, but they don't have the disc. Because I always find that weird.
I hope they don't do that. That's very anti-consumer. I also don't hope they come out with another edition, you know, and say like, oh, hey, you can get the Claire statue instead, only in this other region.
Oh, that's dumb.
I think that would be pretty dumb, too. I feel like, because I know some people are hoping for a Claire statue. I really hope they don't, only because of the fact that, and let me finish this really quick, Brandon. Like, only because if they come out with a Claire statue, like, edition, you know, and they only release it in one region, that's kind of a slap in the face to everyone else in all other regions.
Well, you talking about regional stuff, and yeah, sure, that's an issue though. But I think we should have a Claire statue. I mean, we can't just have Leon get everything. You know what I mean? I don't think that's necessarily fair for anybody else that want like a Claire statue.
I mean, I
like,
can
hold
get
on. Because looking back in the past though, we had like say Code Veronica, or I think Resident Evil 2 as well, because we had two Dreamcasts, one with Chris and one with Claire, the red and blue.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's fair to at least have just one statue of Leon. We should at least have one for Claire.
I could get that. I mean, I just think that if they're gonna do that, if it's like the pretty much the same stuff except for the statue is different, that it not be only regional, you know, like, because that's the thing was with like RE7's collector's editions, it was like regional specifics.
Yeah, stuff like that I understand, because that was garbage. Like, there's one edition for like I think Europe, you don't get the game, but you get everything else with it. Like, what's the point of having a collector's item when you don't have the game with it?
Yeah.
Like, that's dumb. I agree.
Although it would be cool to see, like, you know, if they wanted to do the Leon statue as like a get it first type of deal, but then they'll release a line of like statues of all the different characters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
As like a part of like a statue line that they have going. That would be pretty cool.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we can move on to question number 9. I'll read that off. So, what are your thoughts on the Samurai Edge models that they have released in the game? I saw them. They look different, as Dom said. They're based on the Revelations models, right?
Okay, so from what I can tell, because we do not have these pictures in color, and I'm sure Ren will edit these in.
Yes.
But so from what I can tell, they're probably going to keep Chris's model true to what it actually is, which is It has a bluish slide, silver barrel, and a silver trigger. And that's how it's supposed to look. That's how the replica looked like. It was never in a game before, so this is the first time Chris's model is ever going to be used in a game, as far as I'm aware. But with Jill's, rather than using the Resident Evil Remake and Resident Evil 3 variant, they're using the Revelations 1 variant for some reason. And I'm not sure, because like Ren pointed out that it might be because of the fact that some of the developers were involved with Revelations. I really hope that's not the case. But I'm not exactly sure why they decided to go with that particular variant instead of trying to stick true to the timeline with that variant. And it also makes me wonder that if that's what's happening with Jill's. Oh, that's my phone. If that's what's happening with Jill's model, then we'll probably see RE7 Wesker's model, which I really wouldn't like that, because I would prefer them to be as accurate as possible to the timeline.
Yeah, I miss Wesker's old gun, the silver one. That was great.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the one in 7. It's made accurately. It's just that they add in like this weird fucking compensator and a silencer on it. You know, like
gotta go full siege.
Like and don't get me wrong, I love the upgrades that they do on the Samurai Edge models, like they did with Revelations and Revelations 2. But I just think that if, for timeline's sake and for lore's sake, they need to try to keep it as accurate as possible.
I agree with this. Yeah, I have nothing else to say about it other than the fact that I hope that they, make the guns look good and make them do like maybe some special properties like headshots or just something outside of being aesthetically pleasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't want to keep talking, so I'll let Brendan say his piece if he has anything to say.
Oh, I got nothing to add. I mean, if the gun shoots in real game, I'll kill something with it. I really don't care how it looks. I mean, even one for authentic purposes, then yeah, sure, I'm like maybe shooting stuck with one version or another, but I don't care. Like, just a damn gun I can shoot with.
Man,
I do hope that they're good replacements for the standard handguns that you get.
Look, guns are hot, okay? They're hot when you rub them against boobs and they feel really great.
Not that kind of gun.
Oh, never mind then. I apologize.
But, yeah, I just hope the DLC is good. Like.
All right, so number 10, last question of tonight. Who wants to read that? Yeah, go ahead.
Capcom recently made a statement about being open to doing more remakes in the future, with the possibility of trying to bring back franchises that have been dormant for a while. In your opinion, which Resident Evil titles do you think they will remake? And also, as a follow-up question, which dormant titles do you think Capcom should remake? And just a bullet point here regarding remakes and re-releases of titles in our back catalog. We expect to explore these further with a variety of properties as part of our strategy to utilize our library of IP from Hardcore Gamer. As far as like Resident Evil is concerned, I think they will go as far as like Resident Evil 4, in my opinion. And I know that might sound weird for me to say, especially because it's gotten an HD re-release recently, but I think they would take it to that step where they remake the game just because they can. And while I don't necessarily think RE4 or maybe even Code Veronica need those remakes, I could definitely see why they would want to, because then that would mean, hey, they could bring out these new remakes, make them look better, make them play better even, right? And that's more money for a franchise that is still, making them money. Now, as far as dormant IPs are concerned, I'm really hoping that they do something with Onimusha. And since they recently filed the trademark for it, and there's a web domain that was recently put up for Onimusha, I'm just hoping that there's something coming out of Onimusha as far as dormant stuff is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer for them to make Resident Evil 3 Remake. I think that's gonna happen.
They have to, honestly.
Yeah, they have to. I think it would be good to see Outbreak. Outbreak would be nice to see redone, and people could play online and fuck around. Capcom, once again, RE5 sold like hotcakes, so bringing back co-op will be fun. And them doing something outside of that, I want to see another Dino Crisis and Onimusha, because Dino Crisis, long overdue, Onimusha, long overdue. I think those games would bring a lot of variety to the table, continuing the survival horror aspect, and also this recent resurgence of samurai games that have been coming out lately. I'm so surprised Capcom did not capitalize on the latter, because there are so many coming out.
Yeah, we have Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, we have Nioh 2, and we have Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah. And I know we're gonna get like deep into it in another podcast about those games, but they are, again, it's coming back. Samurai games are coming back, and I'm so hyped. The only thing they could do now is like cock tease me with Tenchu, and I would be so happy.
Yeah, for sure. That's how I feel with like Onimusha. I just want a new Onimusha. Just don't make it like Dawn of Dreams, and we're good. You know, like.
You mean Dawn of Dom?
No.
Dawn of Dreams.
No. You know what? I'll let Brandon go before I make a follow-up point to what you said, Ren.
All right.
Yeah, for the remix concern, though, they had to remake Resident Evil 3. That is a must. And also, I think the Outbreak games as well, if those are considered canon, which they should be, because they do kind of explain things that happen behind the scenes before Leon gets there. And I think around the time Resident Evil 3 happens, because, you know, Jill's like fighting off her zombies herself and whatnot. Well, I think the whole Outbreak things take place after the first half of Resident Evil 3. I'm not entirely sure. Continuity is kind of weird with that, as far as Raccoon City is concerned. But yeah, they did for sure remake those titles, and a dream remake for me would be probably Code Veronica. And a guilty pleasure remake for me would be Resident Evil 5. As much as I like 5, though, I want the original concept of Chris versus a million black dudes.
Also, DMC2, just do it. I mean, if 5 is really, really great, there's no reason to not remake DMC2, because DMC2 sucks, the original. So
could I just say with that, I would actually want to see the first 3 Devil May Cry games get remade, but for different reasons. For one, simply because obviously it's the most dated of the Devil May Cry games, and they could easily go in there and start adding in like new bosses and extra content that was not originally there, like new playable characters and stuff like that.
And continuity fix.
Yep. Yeah, and continuity fixes. Devil May Cry 2, simply because I just want a good game. We didn't get a good game when it came to Devil May Cry 2. Interesting concepts.
I kind of disagree with that, but different story.
Well, it's a shooting gallery. There is problems that exist, but I mean, I enjoyed playing like some of the beginning levels, but it didn't compel me enough to go back and replay it with Lucia for some weird reason.
See, I like the game enough to not only play it with Lucia, but play it with Trish as well. So,
I never got Trish. She must be like God tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
She must be really God tier, because a lot of people said they enjoy the game better when they get her.
Yeah, because it's a Devil May Cry game once you play as Trish. And then when it comes to 3, right, I just want it to be on par with like 4 and potentially even 5, where, you know, we have things like style switching and an actual story and exclusive missions for Virgil rather than copy and paste, and maybe even a lady section, right?
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother subject. I do want to talk a little bit before we end off the podcast on, and this is something both of you mentioned with like Outbreak remakes, right? I think that the idea of doing an Outbreak remake is great, because if there is some things, if that game is canon, right? Well, in its current state, it conflicts with the Resident Evil 2 remake because now the whole layout is completely altered and stuff like that. So they have to really with the RPD. So like they really have to go back in there and change that stuff up. Maybe after a Resident Evil 3 remake to fit more in line with what is canon. On top of that, I do think that with an Outbreak remake, Outbreak File 1 and 2, there would be that chance to redo the 4-player co-op campaign and explore different gameplay mechanics, maybe mechanics that didn't initially work out at the time when they were developing the game, and trying to do them again with, you know, better tech.
Also, they can fix the continuity errors and stuff like that, because it's so weird. Like, apparently they were there before Leon came into town, and then Jill was there before, and then she fell asleep, she got knocked out, she got sucker punched, you know, Nemesis bitch slap, and she woke up later and the city was about to be nuked. So it's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people say, you know, how the hell did Leon and Claire get past the barricades? How the hell did the police take down all the shit in the police station? And Jill, you know, she got there, it was still up, and then it's gone, like in RE2.
People suggested that, like, wherever survivors there were left, because, you know, in Resident Evil 2 there were a lot of civilians in the police station along with police. So people theorized that they went there, tore down what they could, and then that's why the police station looked like what it was then.
It's cool also how, if you notice in the demo, there's like a small like medical station, makeshift. So people were there and they were injured. And it's cool that, you know, everyone's hanging out in the front of the office because that's the safest place so far.
I think there was also a body bag there in that room.
Oh, I guess that means there's going to be trouble. Watch. So that's pretty, that's going to be a scary thought. Like if the lights go out and you have to deal with Marvin and some friends.
Yeah, I think there was with the concept art for a remake, they did put in a zombie like silhouette there in the main hall.
It's going to be interesting. Because there's also the fact that you can cut on the lights, but you know, that's another story. I think we're done for tonight. So we could do outros.
Yeah, also I want to make one minor correction on my behalf. There's potentially maybe RNG elements involving the enemies with RE3, but it's only in like maybe one or handful of parts where you could technically control what enemies you get from a at one point. Like, you know, the park where you go in and out, you either get lickers, sorry, not lickers, hunters or leeches. That's one example. And also apparently the grenade launcher and the Magnum portion in the beginning of the game, apparently that is RNG because you have a higher chance of getting the grenade launcher than the Magnum early.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know that because I always get the grenade launcher instead of Magnum.
Magnum's good though because that is the Nemesis killer.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up earlier was just because of the I had somebody mention that to me when I was visiting Capcom 2 years ago. So that was, I think that's why I was thinking of, like, I think it's RNG. Let me bring up Resident Evil 3.
Yeah, because RNG is not prominent involving a lot of enemies though, but again, those parts could potentially be RNG though, I don't know, but you can't technically control that because most of the time you would get one thing over the other. So it's a possibility. So that's about it. But yeah, we're going for outros, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I'll just go first. You can find me at Twitter at none of your damn business. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Brando IAS because, you know, I'm original. And that's it.
Alright, you can find me on YouTube at Rent Operative. Fuck! I fucked that up. You can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitter at RentOperative_. I will be doing a video essay on Hunk and talking about him being in the series, Capcom statements on him, and you know why he's not in the main game currently, my opinion on that. So it should be an interesting video. Might release alongside this podcast.
are you gonna call out Gregaman for saying or comparing him to Johnny Sasaki from Metal Gear?
Isn't that the character that like shits his pants?
Shits himself,
like,
yeah.
Why
that's who
would he
compared him
say
to.
something like that?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, there was a Revelation stream for back when it was coming out to PS3 and 360. And Gregaman on stream said that that Hunk was comparable to Johnny Sasaki, and that the reason why they wouldn't do anything with him is because of the fact that he would end up doing something wrong with as a character, you know.
Can we
Like
end this
Johnny.
already before I go on a rant? Come on, let's end this.
Yes, we can.
I'll save that for later. Don't worry.
Oh, good. But yeah, you can find Ren's porn account at Renegade Fox.
Get out.
You can find me as biodevil_dom on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, even though I don't really go on Twitch anymore. And yeah, I'm working on a video myself. I am scripting my Resident Evil 2 review. I'm going to actually get some people salty because I'm not going to spoil it for now, but I expect people to get salty because, you know, I'm not using overhype and putting games on a pedestal. But yeah, beside that, yeah, that's all I really got going. And then I got another video essay too, sort of in response to what Renegade did not too long ago about talking about the end of the franchise and what should happen with it.
Sounds good. All right. This is the IAS signing off. See you losers later, and take care.
Yeah, come watch our podcast. We'll play Destiny 2 all the time.
Fuck no. Okay, look, you guys are gonna watch us play Umbrella Corps soon, one of these days, because we still have to play that on stream.
Don't eat like a
man.
big Asian woman's ass. I mean, that game.
Well, that's a compliment.
Well,
That's a compliment to me. Yeah, I'll lick that Asian booty.
Okay, end this.
end the podcast now.